Good morning. I think I want to talk a little bit about what's going on in the world. And it is currently June 6, 2021. It's about 11:25 a.m. in the morning. And most of what I'll do in videos is going to be off the top of my head, just running through, trying to keep it in order. Other times I will try to flip back and forth between the facing of the screen if I can. If not, I'll try my best to get links into the bottom and in the description so you can feel free to look at them. Otherwise, I'll just turn the phone around from selfie mode and look at another screen if we have to. What I see is going on, as it's quoted in a movie from Mel Gibson quite a few years back, called The Edge of Darkness. It isn't what it is, only what it can be made to look like. And further on in the same movie, it's mentioned that in a situation where people are trying to cover their tracks, especially a money trail, in regards to any type of weaponry, the goal is to make it so convoluted that anybody that could figure it out will never be able to bring solid proof or tie anybody to it. Which brings me to my reason for making this video. Mostly everybody thinks that certain people with certain organizations have come in wanting to do good. I'll not mention any names, not because of censorship or anything like that, but I just want to leave names out of it. I'd rather give you the information that you need to look in. It's easy to remember. It's easy to memorize, and it's easy to put together, and it's not that big of a puzzle. Most of it is right in our faces. There was always a quote put out online that was from Kennedy, supposedly, and it was that there was a plot in this nation to enslave every man, woman, and child, and before he left that high and noble office, he intended to expose it. By all accounts, he didn't have that chance, but there was an executive order. It is 13887. It was signed September 19th, 2019, as titled Modernizing Influenza Vaccines in the United States to Promote National Security and Public Health. A month following this would have been the claimed to be conspiracy theory Event 201. It wasn't Agenda 201, it's Event 201. And what actually did take place was potentially, as it's written in the executive order, stemming from that and a preparation or a conference to see how well prepared the world was for a respiratory pandemic. And then, of course, I do believe, if my memory serves me correctly, the first reported case of COVID-19 came out of China December 4th or 13th, and I will clarify that in the description, but that was the first reported case of COVID. And if you notice already, these things are falling right in line with each other. Amongst other things, the declaration of national emergency and the Stafford Act, March 14th, 2020, of course, started all the shutdowns. But what a lot of people missed was 3 days after that, and that was called a PrEP Act declaration. And what that is it is an, as it's written, an immunity to liability. That means anybody involved in any type of these countermeasures to whatever the declaration is used for. In this case, it was for COVID-19. It basically vaccinates those who are involved from liability of anything that might come of this. That means the federal government. That means the pharmaceutical companies, the medical workers, the doctors, the professionals, and the scientists. Every single one, from top to bottom, is immunized against liability from anything that will come out of this entire situation. So if something does happen to people who have had countermeasures, treatments for COVID-19, there will be no mesothelioma type class action lawsuit because they have covered their own tracks. Now, if you'll read the PrEP Act, it's easily seekable from any federal website, whatever you choose to do, whether you choose to look at it or not. I want to spark your thought in looking at the chain of events that have happened and be better prepared for the next phase of this, and the fact that this entire process was under a fast-tracking order or agenda called Operation Warp Speed. You know what warp speed is? Beam me up, Scotty. If you already feel you can't trust your media, and you feel that you can't trust those who claim to maintain the nation you live in, what makes you think that you can trust them when they are now claiming to release video documentation of lights and flying things in the skies? I ask you to question that and what's truly behind that. This is a time of testing. It is. It has been. I do believe 2020 was supposed to be a year of reflection for people, to look within themselves. Many were distracted with binge watching shows and anything that they could be fed to keep them docile. And don't take this any disrespect or belittling anyone, but I do believe this is what was put on the people in a time that would have been better to reflect on themselves and look within themselves and find themselves and process through the things in our heart and the things in our mind that are unhealthy emotionally, physically, and in some people's cases, spiritually. There's also another aspect to this. Ask anybody that tries to get a patent pushed forward, and for your average Joe, sometimes that can take 1 to 10 years. But when you're a major corporation, that is not the case. Grab a pen real quick. Get ready to write this down. It is patent number from U.S. Patent Scope. And there's many other sources that have this patent listed. I do believe, if memory serves me correctly, it was patented and processed March 24th, 2020. And it is titled, the number is WO 2020 060606. That is the patent number. The title has changed. I will do my best to do another video to show you the screenshots from when I looked at this a year ago. The title has changed on the patent, whereas it says cryptocurrency building by body activity data, and it is a Microsoft patent. And I ask you, how would that be possible? Because as it's written, something would be able to transmit to a mobile health unit or a mobile health device or potentially a mobile health app, all of your vitals in real time without wearing anything. That means you won't need a Fitbit, no kind of attachment. So I ask you, how would the body vitals be able to be monitored, both temperature, blood pressure, pulse, heart rate, all these things, without anything attached to you? I ask you to go read the patent and go look at all bulletins of it and notice that there is one portion that is grayed out where you cannot click on it. Now, this is patent scope. This is the first one that should pop up. In national phase, as it's written, you can't access it. You can't see what the national phase part of this patent from Microsoft to monitor body activity data. You can't see it, and that does bother me. Considering where technology is today, it is concerning that they could, drop. Again, here we go. I'll probably lose some people. It's called smart dust, and if you take 30 seconds and you plug that into any one of your search engines that you choose, you will see that since the early 90s, the United States government and multiple institutions have used what they call smart dust, and they will drop it from the atmosphere, and where it lands, it will be able to monitor things such as ground temperature, barometric pressure, ground elevation changes. It has a scientific purpose to it. But since the early 90s, 91 to 93, this technology has evolved to where these things will be the size of a grain of sand and have a processor, have a camera, have a microphone, and all the other things needed to measure barometric pressure and all kinds of weather conditions. This stuff is real. If you would take 10 minutes and look at it, you would begin to understand where some people are concerned about the countermeasures today. It is very important that we look at these things. If we keep our heads in the sand, we won't see what it is. We won't see the thief coming. So I ask you to do your own research. It doesn't take much time at all. The time that many people would spend scrolling through social media, why don't you scroll through a search engine and consider that there is more to this than they paint a picture for. As a painter, I know that I can't keep my respirator on for more than an hour and a half before I need to pull it off and walk outside and breathe adequate fresh air. I know that. And I know for a fact that no mask, dust mask, I'm not discriminating here. No dust mask that I have worn in a body shop setting has ever stopped dust from completely getting around it. Even without a beard. You cannot stop all that particulate matter from coming around it when you breathe in, because the rate that you inhale supersedes the CFM or the flow rate of any mask. So you're still pulling outside air from around your nose, from around the side of your face. And as a man, I have a mustache. In the wintertime when I'm huffing and puffing outside and working, my mustache is condensated. It's wet. when you blow your breath out in the wintertime and you see the condensate, when you see the fog or the smoke, that's condensation coming from your lungs. Natural liquid that keeps your lungs lubricated so you're not dry coughing and hacking all the time. When you continually breathe this same humidity over and over and over, it's like leaving a humidifier on in a child's room for too many days after her condition has gotten better or his condition. They continue to get sicker at that point if you don't catch it. Too much humidity being breathed in is detrimental to our health. That's why it's so hard to breathe when the humidity is up over, 150,000%, like it is most of the time in the summer in North Carolina, at least where I'm at. And Rockdale, Texas, and oil fields, dead of summer, yeah, that's not a dry heat, I'm going to tell you. You can go to Galveston Island. I'm sure if you've been there, you know how humid it gets. But it is not healthy to breathe that much at one time and then enter an environment that is air conditioned, because the air is actually conditioned, and an air conditioner does no more than remove the humidity from the environment. The humidity drips off the coil into the drip pan and exits however it's plumbed to do so. If you have all that right there and you're in the sun, that's a breeding ground for mold, especially if mold spores are floating around in the air and they get sucked into the side and embedded in your face covering. This could happen first thing in the morning when you get out to go to work. You touch it, you move it, you breathe in it, you condensate it, it gives the bacteria a sustainable environment. I just ask you to use your brains and think just a little bit deeper. If you begin to do this, I urge you not to get angry. If you start putting these things together, there's no sense in getting upset. Because the best thing you can do is do your own research, gather your own opinion, and then once you figure it out, the only way the truth can win, if in fact any of these things do lead to a truth that this is far more sinister than many of us think, the best thing to do is let people know. God doesn't expect us to fight. He does expect us to stand up for what's right, what's true, and how we should all treat each other. Don't attack people for their opinions. Don't judge people for the way they choose to live. I'm not going to judge you for wearing a mask. I will explain if I'm asked why I don't wear one, and I just gave you that expression. As for my opinion on not taking the vaccine, I'm sure it's as much as anybody. My concern is what it's about, what's in it, because again, the formulas have not been released. The CDC has a suggested ingredient list listed on their website. It's suggested. We've already been told that they're not releasing the formulas. And I need you to consider, just like with every other major disaster, war, and conflict, there's always been something involved, and you need to look at who's making all of that right now. And right now, that would be those who are invested in countermeasures to this. Just use your mind. We'll talk later. I love y'all.